what we do here is go back.
Let's see, hopefully everything is working. Good evening everyone, Mike's Unboxing, Reviews and How To. This is the Saturday night live stream. It is the 29th of April 2023. Hopefully you're all having a fantastic Saturday evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Flame isn't, he's being a right pain in the backside.
There you go.
He's crying for something, but we don't know what. Maybe he wants cheap motherboards as well, who knows. Anyway, let's have a quick microphone check and audio check. And no, that is the same, isn't it? Audio, yeah. Brain's not working very well. Where's my mouse gone? There he is. Yes. Right. Yes, Mookie MC says, I see and hear in sync. Good, good. Adam End, loud and clear. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. The lighting is a little bit weird because, well, I haven't put the lights on. We're just using what is left of the very slowly setting sun. Been out in the sun a little bit today and yesterday, doing some gardening, a bit of catch up, all that kind of usual stuff. So getting a little bit more colour, a little bit more active, which is good for the serotonin and making you, well, even though that isn't a thing actually, but regardless, getting out and about, doing stuff, chopping up wood, being active is good for the mind, the body and the spirit. Well then, God knows I need the help with the body. Actually, you need the help with the spirit as well, because motherboards and basically a lot of things at the moment are stupidly expensive. And as per the title of the stream, it appears that motherboard pricing is basically killing off the low-end budget builds. I've spoken to so many people in this last couple of weeks, and basically the same applies to most of them. Even some of the local guys here in Bristol, where I quite often say, look, I've got some bits and pieces, just want to get rid of them, what, like literally less than cost price, whatever, just take it off my hands, I need to clear some room. And even they're getting to the point where they're turning down basically free stock because they just can't sell PCs at the moment, because you just cannot build them for a price which people are prepared to pay, or that you can actually make any profit on whatsoever. And some of these guys actually do it for kind of like a living, so they do have to actually turn a profit. For people like myself, it's kind of not as important because it's more of a sideline, it's more of a way of getting rid of PCs. Our income comes in from other avenues, so we don't have to worry about making a profit on the PCs. To break even is nice, and to not lose a great deal is okay. We can do that. It has been done numerous times. We've sold PCs before, which has been below what we paid for them. But we rely on the fact that there's lovely people like you guys that are watching the videos, clicking on the links, etc., buying stuff from our affiliates, which all helps us to be able to do what we do, and also then to let PCs go out at basically stupidly low pricing, which in fact this week 2 PCs gone out. The old InWin B1 finally has gone to a new home, so I'm glad to see that that has gone. That thing's been here for ages, very rarely ever got used. Basically it was mostly Christmas Day. We put it on just so we could watch YouTube in the other room, because we don't really use the other room apart from Christmas Day. And yeah, that PC was in there, and that was basically all it did. YouTube every now and then, and I used to go in there every now and then just to turn it on and do the Windows updates on it. But other than that, it was basically brand new, which was insane. So that sold this week with a Ryzen 3 2200G, 240 gig hard drive, 16 gigs of RAM, the Gigabyte Aorus Elite ITX motherboard, 200 watt power supply, gold one with the InWin B1 case, and that PC sold with a brand new Windows 11 license for £170, which I thought was actually pretty decent value for money. And I priced up the bits individually.
Could you try again?
No, I certainly couldn't. And I tried pricing up the parts to get it even close to that price, and you just can't. It was about 250, 300 realistically. So somebody got a bargain there. Glad to see that has happened. and also the Intel PC that we built was it last week or the week before, the 12400F, finally gone. That has gone as well, along with the Asus B660 Wi-Fi Strix motherboard, the one that caused us all those problems for another processor. Seems to work fine with the 12400 in there, so that PC has now gone to a better place, along with a RTX, a GTX 1070 8GB, which was in there, and that went for just over £500, which it was actually a fantastic little PC. Should have charged more. It sold within 2 hours of being listed, so clearly I listed it a little bit too cheap, but anyway, it is what it is. So yes, it is what it is. So I'm left in the situation now where I have a PC case, which I have here, which I actually tried passing on to someone locally. They weren't interested, even for free, which says a lot about what I'm up against here. So I've actually got this one. This is from our good friends over at Ions. This is the Kiro Gamer Edition. I think this is the KZ, was it KZ29? Yeah, KZ29. It says it down the bottom. KZ29. So this is actually a half decent case. Very cost effective. You're looking around about £30, £35 for it if you're buying one brand new. So when you're spending £35 on a PC case, clearly you're not going to be putting in there high-end components because it just doesn't make any sense. Ultimately, if you're going to go for a budget build, you put in a relatively inexpensive case. If you're going for mid-range, you use a mid-range case. The case is, in a lot of cases, excuse the pun, is what sells a PC. So that initial kind of recognition or realization of the case. So if you're selling a PC and it's in like a Corsair 4000D, which is quite a recognizable chassis, people will look at the listing and go, immediately they have some preconceptions of what that PC is all about and what is likely to be inside it because of the age of the case, the cost of the case, etc., etc. Now, that hope is the way that it works. So if you have an expensive case, chances are you're going to put relatively expensive parts in there because you're not going to sell an expensive case with shit parts in it for a lot of money to make your money back on your case. Am I making sense? Hopefully I am. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that if you've got a £35 case, you've got to be looking very carefully at what you're putting inside it. Motherboard really can't cost more than about £50 to £60 at an absolute maximum. Processor wise, you've got to be looking somewhere between 80 and 120. RAM doesn't really matter. DDR4 is pretty cheap these days, so you can pretty much go with whatever you want on there. M.2 drives, again, same sort of deal. 1 terabyte M.2 drive, looking at about £40 here in the UK at the moment, so that's absolutely fine. Power supplies, a little bit hit and miss. There are some cheapy ones you can pick up, such as things like our Cylon, which is one of our favourites that we use on a regular basis. Quite often you can find deals as well. Again, it depends what is going on in the market. But a lot of people are saying the same thing at the moment, pretty much in the UK, in Australia, in the USA, over in Canada, you name it. Basically, pretty much globally, people are saying the same things, and that is motherboards are getting ridiculously expensive. For the people over in Australia, if you didn't know already, there is talk at the moment of there being an increased import tax or export tax, whichever it is, for motherboards and that kind of stuff going into the country. So you've been pretty spoiled recently with actually pretty stellar motherboard prices, going from what I'm hearing from some of our Australian viewers and also the people at Hardware Unboxed, where they give Australian dollar prices. So with that, potentially Australia might be getting worse prices. So yeah, it seems to be a global thing. So realistically now, if you're looking for a reasonably good ATX B450 board or a B550 board, you're looking at least £90 to £120, which for a budget build is completely unacceptable. So then you have to make the compromise of potentially putting a micro ATX motherboard into an ATX case, which is the ultimate sacrilege. I hate doing it, but it looks like that is going to be the way things are going to be going. Then you're going to be looking at things like the MSI B550 Pro VDH Wi-Fi, which is still ridiculously expensive, nearly £100 as well, where we could get that at some points as low as £60, even on Amazon. So things are just, yeah, The motherboard conundrum is really, really vexing. I've spent the best part of 2 days going on PC Part Picker, various sites, UK hot deals, etc, etc, just typing in random stuff and looking for lowest prices. And it's extremely hard to put together a budget-based PC at the moment. It really, really is. So that is what we're going to be discussing on tonight's episode. We will go in now and say hello to some of you that are in the chat, and also thank Mick Woods as well for his super chat. Bless you, sir.
Sorry, how's your eyes?
Mine, my eyes, choking to death.
Got a cat coming in.
And
Come on, then.
if anything else is relevant, please do let us know in the chat and we will discuss it further. But I think that is kind of my my initial monologue out of the way. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're going to be talking about tonight. Ideally, I want you guys and girls out there to be letting us know of the deals. Now, we do have a room in our Discord, which if you haven't joined already, please feel free to do so. We'll put some links for Discord in the chat. But there is a bargains no chat room, and it's not been getting many hits recently, especially motherboard wise. There was one this week which I actually posted as well on the YouTube creators, whatever you call it, the info board of the MSI B550 Gaming Plus, which was around about £110, which actually is a very nice board, but it's not quite what I'm looking for at the moment for what I'm doing. Now, to give you some idea of pricing, I actually sold that same motherboard not long ago for about £100 second hand. So it had got to about 140, 150. Box.co.uk here in the UK, I've actually reduced it down to 109, I think it is. So at the moment, if you're looking for that sort of thing, then that is actually a really good option. And even if you look on amazon.co.uk, the same motherboard, MSI's B550 Gaming Plus, is available on amazon.co.uk for £109 from box.co.uk, but just sold on Amazon. So if you do like to shop on Amazon, feel free to do that, and you can grab a link from there. So that is kind of where we're at. Let's say hello to some of you people in the chat. I'm feeling a little bit burnt today. This is the second day in a row spent in the garden, and it's been it's been not been hot, and actually it's been mostly cloudy, but
a lot of breeze. So
yeah, very breezy, so I just didn't notice it. Quite warm. I can feel the back of my head burning now, or it might just be the light off the back of the RGB. Who knows? Wouldn't it be good if you can get a suntan off of RGB? Anyway, moving on. David Aitken came in with the first comment of the day, saying, spoiler alerts, his mind won't be changed. Well, potentially it will be. If some of you lovely people out there in Viewerland post some deals of cheap motherboards, that'll be great. Then my mind will be changed.
Just interrupt.
You can.
Why are they so expensive in UK? ZS this is. I'm in Croatia and I'm looking at my closest store now. B450 ASRock brand new is €76 and ASRock B550 brand new is €86.
It's a very good question. I think there's, as with everything, there are multiple facets to why motherboards are so expensive, especially here in the UK. There are various contributing factors. Now, you could argue Brexit was one of them because of the increased import taxes, etc., and just the general difficulty of shipping things around the European Union. I'm not entirely convinced that is entirely down to that, because motherboards, motherboards and things like that generally, although yes, they may come from European distributors, there's a very strong chance that most places like your Scans, your eBuyers, etc., they're going to be buying from probably MSI distributors either directly and get them shipped over from Taiwan, China, wherever, somewhere in that region, I would imagine, purely to avoid all the European Union stuff. I don't know for sure. If there's anybody who works in purchasing at any of those types of companies in the UK, please feel free to let us know in the chat. And yeah, is that the likelihood of what you do? You buy a container full of motherboards and wait for them to be shipped across because you can get them so much cheaper. I'm guessing there are going to be instances where even MSI in the UK or Gigabyte in the UK or whoever, Asus, etc., their UK distribution centres are going to send out to retailers, but they themselves are probably going to have to pay import duties of some kind.
ZSS, so it comes down to taxes.
Essentially, it does come down to taxes, but also it comes down to the inflation at the moment. So in the United Kingdom at the moment, they're working on a overall inflation, which isn't overall because they don't include everything, but the CPI index is basically about 11%, I believe, at the moment. So if you include into things like your electricity bill, your gas bill, the price of fuel, shopping, etc., if you put in everything across the board, then I would say probably inflationary, we're probably closer to 20.
I would say almost 50.
Maybe as an average.
Okay.
Is an average about 20%. Foodstuffs over here, most food products are gone up 50%, if not 100% in some instances. I know for a fact George's favourite chocolate chip cookies from Tesco used to be 33p, they're now 66p, so they've doubled in price. So that is that is the cheapest ones, and they're 100% more expensive than they were. So that is kind of where we're looking. Obviously, there's a big, it's a real big mess because you've got obviously the cost of living for everybody is more expensive. So everybody who works wants to earn more because they're having to pay more. But that in itself fuels further inflation, and you get what they call super inflation. Because if a company has to pay its employees more to do the same job for the same profits, they have to then put up their prices. So it becomes like a spiral and it gets out of control. So if various different companies and unions and whatever across the UK all start paying or demanding more money and actually get more money, it's just going to fuel the situation. Unfortunately, inflation is one of those things that you have to ride out. As tough as it is and as hard as it is for all of us, God knows, me and Kath know, we go down to the local shops buying the gone off sandwiches most nights. So totally understand where people are coming from when they say we cannot afford to live. It's very hard. It's very hard for a lot of people. But getting paid more wages is not the answer to easing inflation, because the company that is paying you more wages is just going to put their prices up. So everybody who buys from that company or uses that company is going to cost more. So yeah, it's the inflationary thing needs to be looked at, but I don't think it's the be all and end all. A lot of it as well is pure greed. There's going to be companies out there which don't have particularly high moral standards. When they see prices rolling up in some certain area, it gives them an excuse to put their prices up, even if they're not incurring the extra costs, because it's the cost of living. So they just jack their prices up because they know pretty much they can get away with it, or at least they'll do it for as long as they can until sales dry up because there's no more money left in the pot.
Or karma kicks in.
Or karma kicks in and they go bust. Generally, you'll find that it's like a wave effect. So as the prices get higher, the sales slow down. Sales slow down, it affects the whole industry. So then everything drops down. Then everybody shits themselves, starts selling stuff off at ridiculously low prices, which then people start buying. So the profits start going up again. The income goes up, and it carries on. And we go through this cycle. It's normally about a 7 to 11 year cycle, and it just goes up, dips and drops, dips and drops. And depending where you are on the cycle is how uncomfortable it is to live. At the moment, we are pretty much in the kind of, not quite the peak, but we're just coming over the top of the peak, and we're not too sure whether it's going to drop or whether it's going to carry on peaking for a little while longer yet. So we are kind of at relatively the worst of it. And judging by what is going on in the market at the moment, we are already seeing some things coming down in price. We've already seen memory prices tumble. A lot of it could be down to DDR4 going to DDR5. We've seen storage prices drop. M.2 drives have gone back to very good prices. Even mechanical drives have dropped to pretty significant low prices. Even this week, 3 terabyte drives going for something like £52 I think it was, for a 3 terabyte drive, which for bulk storage actually seems like not such a bad thing. Obviously graphics cards, we're seeing those tumbling, but not necessarily because of the same reasons. Potentially because AMD are looking to release their new 7000 series low-end graphics cards, or mid to low-end graphics cards, towards the tail end of May. So they've got a lot of inventory. They put a lot of money, a lot of resources into mining, creating graphics cards. So things like the RX 6600, 6700, 6800, 6900, 6950 XT, all of those had massive, massive production runs because of when it was happening. Mining was a big thing and they kind of jumped on that bandwagon. So now all that inventory is kind of stockpiled, needs to be cleared before AMD can release their other stuff. And then of course you get the other thing where there's the hesitancy then. So people that are looking for a graphics card in the kind of moderate mid-range are thinking, well, do I pull the trigger now and buy a 6700 XT or 6600 XT, 6650 XT, or do I wait and see what happens with the 7600 XT in a month or so's time? So that again is going to fuel that price drop because people are going to be holding back, definitely, waiting. There's going to be other people that just haven't got the money. And there's also people that are thinking logically, well, if they've got all this stock, they need to clear it. They don't want to hold on to it. The exchange rates are dipping. They're going to want to clear stuff. So do you wait until they go down to their rock bottom prices in them pounds? Which for some people is what they will do if they don't have a desperate need for a graphics card. So that is also going into the equation. So there's all these kind of crazy things going on around the world. Obviously, container prices went sky high when the whole lockdown and stuff was going on. People were buying a lot of stuff, especially work from home stuff, keyboards, mice, monitors, all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of people buying from home. A lot of stuff was being shipped in. There weren't enough containers to ship it all in. Container prices rose up. So those prices now, the can has been thoroughly kicked down the road. So those increased prices from 18 months ago, 2 years ago, are now obviously coming to the fore because they just get passed along. The prices always get passed along to the end user. That is the way of the world. So very high shipping costs, very high distribution costs, very high individual like manufacturing costs. It all gets passed down the line until we basically buy it or decide not to, in which case a lot of stock gets written off because it's been around for so long. The 3-year rule for most companies is you can hold on to stock. If it's not sold within 3 years, it basically you can use it as a tax write-off. So yeah, all that comes into it. There's a lot of things going on which all kind of have mingled around at the same sort of time. We had a massive boom when in 2019, early 2020, when that whole thing kicked off and everyone was just buy, buy, buy. The government were giving away stimulus checks and furlough checks, basically giving people free money. And what are people going to do with free money? They're going to buy stuff they don't necessarily need because it's kind of not their money. But then that money has to be got from somewhere, which normally comes round in the form of taxation. So the money that we all spent and were given back then, we've now got to start paying back in the form of taxes, inflation, and all that kind of stuff. So yes, it was good at the time and everyone was living the high life and it's like, whoa, look at all this money and look at all this, everything's selling. This is good times. Yes, there's people around the world very ill, but look, I've got a new computer. So yeah, that whole era, the 3-year thing, is now basically kicking us in the butt. I've probably elaborated on that way too much, but hopefully that goes some way to answer your question. There's obviously going to be a lot more to do with it as well. You've also got the fact that a lot of the money has been just printed rather than actually having a tangible value. So the money that was printed to give out isn't backed up by anything such as gold or shares or reserves or anything. So by producing more money or putting more money into the actual what's the word I'm looking for? Basically flooding the market with money makes it so that that money is actually worth less than it was before it was flooded because it hasn't got that same value. So obviously you can buy less with the same amount of money, which that again, that is what kickstarted or at least ignited the fire under inflation. Because if you just print money digitally and it has no value whatsoever other than the fact that it says on there, I promise to pay the bearer, it's an IOU basically. So yeah, that was what lit the fire. The government panicked. They did something they shouldn't have had to do because of... I'm not going to get into that. Let's not go there. Moving on. So, hello, yes, JB's Arcade Mods, how you doing? It says, also case mods are not what they were either. No, actually, funny enough, I was looking today. I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to upset somebody. Hopefully they're not in the chat, but they might be later. Thermaltake are about to release, or they have released, their new CTE design, the CTE 750. And I've been looking at some early reviews and looking at pricing, and it looks like it's going to be about 200 quid. And it doesn't appear, at least on paper currently, from what I can see, to be any better than something like the Series 500. In fact, in some thermal tests, it does worse, despite it being optimized for airflow and cooling, etc. So it's basically £50 dearer than its predecessor. I don't know if this is becoming a thing, and a lot of companies are starting to do this sort of thing. So a lot of cases are getting more expensive. If we look back again, back to that golden era, late 2018, early 2019, that sort of time, we had things like the GameX F15M, which I'm sure there's going to be some of you in the chat who actually found this channel because of that case. It was a great case based on the Lian Li 215 and various others around the globe. It's basically a design from Jonesbow, I believe, which has been rebadged, etc. But it was a great case, and it retailed, I believe, from CCL when it first came out. I think it was about £60, maybe £65, but it was perfect. It basically had everything you needed. It had big fans, lots of RGB, loads of room for radiators. It was basically the kind of the perfect case for almost 99% of the people building PCs, if you didn't mind having a GameMax logo on your PC, which some people don't because case snobbery, etc. Anyway, so that was like £60–70. That was a good time. And we also had other cases around at the same time. Corsair came out with the 4000D, which was often around about kind of £70, but did start seeing itself going up to like 90 to 100. But I feel personally, let me know what you think in the chat, I think personally the ideal price for a PC case is somewhere between 50 and probably £100 at the most. I feel that the case has to be either exceptionally good or have some specific feature or features which justify the additional price. But for just a regular PC case, for a gaming PC, I think £50 to £100 is the most we should be paying. £50 obviously is going to be a little bit tight, but it can be done. We've seen things like the Sahara C501, which was a great case actually. Come with fans as well. That was about £50. Then again, the GameX F15 Mesh, £60–70 at places. Great case. The Lian Li 215, which it was loosely based on, kind of £60–80 depending where you shopped. Fantastic cases. The Corsair 4000D, again, very, very flexible case and very, very popular. So when we're now getting cases which are kind of £150, £175, £200, it seems like it's going down that same route again, where it's just becoming expensive for the sake of becoming expensive, much like motherboards. Anyway, I'll go on to why motherboards are expensive in a minute, because it's not entirely down to inflationary things and also basically greed and Brexit and all those other kinds of things. There is actually a reason why motherboards, especially from the B550 range onwards, are significantly more expensive. So there is actually some justification. We may not like it, but it is what it is. Lucky Man says, dog walk back for the stream, I hope. I hope so too. I think I saw you in the chat actually, so I think you should be back by now. Actually, that's a very good and interesting comment from KZH. I say that the money saved on RAM and SSD prices dropping more than cancels out motherboard prices stagnating at their shortage prices. That's actually a pretty decent argument. You could say, yes, it does offset the total build cost. But on the flip side, storage prices haven't changed dramatically in the last 3 years, I would argue. We have seen 1 terabyte SSDs or M.2 drives when they're on offer on general for around about £40 to £50, which is pretty much where they are at the moment. So I guess if you argue they should be 20% more expensive, then yes, they are cheaper. So, yeah, there's arguments for and against that, I think, there. But definitely a valid point. Lucky Man says, never mind the Mobos. Who the hell has 400 to 500 quid for a GPU? Or CPU. A CPU, it says, sorry. Yeah, there is that as well. CPUs at the high end have got quite expensive. It's not really been a massive swing, but it seems it. If you look back to the early days of even things like the Athlon XP range, the top end Athlon XP range chip at its time I think was about £300. So if you take into account inflation over those last 15 years or so, it's not a million miles off. But anyway, yeah, I get what you mean. It still is ridiculous. JB's Arcade says, it's official, PC parts pricing has gone to the dogs. Abandon all hope, ye who wish to build decent cheap PC here. Very much so, very much. Old Man Withers says, CCL had some nice cheap Montec cases. I did actually see that. I actually had a Montec 1000, I think it was, in my basket. And I was like, do I, don't I? But because getting a cheap case at the moment still leaves me with the same problem. Finding a motherboard that can go into it, that is actually going to make it so that that cheap case is reflected in the rest of the build. It's actually a really hard thing to juggle at the moment, it really is. David Underhill, morning all from Australia. Timely theme today's stream, Australia government is talking about adding an import tax on imports. Grr. There you go. So it's not just me making up things, it is actually a real deal. David also goes on to say, need to grab a couple of cheap motherboards while I can. Cheap B550 motherboards, only 60 GBP, or £60 here at present. By the way, I paid 10k for a 386 PC in 1990. Bits are still a lot more cheaper than they were back then. Yes, they are, PC parts now are commodity items rather than being, back in 1990, PC parts would have been very niche indeed. And if you weren't buying a home computer such as a Commodore 64, a Sinclair Spectrum, VIC-20, maybe Amstrad CPC 128 or something like that, then if you're buying a IBM compatible, then you would be paying a lot of money because it was very, very new. Especially if you're in kind of office or something, running a DOS program or a Lotus or something like that. Those were the days. David also, Dutch Jan's with us. Moin from Germany. How you doing, Dutch Jan? David also says, computer bits are still cheaper than cigarettes and alcohol. Glad I don't drink or smoke. Our cigarettes are the most expensive in the world. Wow. Deathstroke's with us. Says, evening all. How you doing, Deathstroke? Dutch Jan says, I just saw on his channel, I'm leaving Bitwit, but not the internet. I don't understand that. I just saw on his channel, I'm leaving. I don't understand that. You might have to explain that to me a little bit more. Is Bitwit jacking it in? That wouldn't surprise me.
Or is it clickbait? Or
yeah.
Also,
Skystalker. How you doing, Sky? So I'm gonna have a slurp of my tea while Kath engages her mind. Could take a while. The clutch is broken.
Damo69, hey Mike, do a poll for where people like to buy their components from, please, if it's okay. But it's okay if you don't want to.
I can do, but doing a poll is adding the extra things would be a little bit difficult. I could do a straw poll, I suppose. Yeah, maybe I could do that. I'll see if I can do that. I'll say hello to the people. William Boney's with us. Says, morning to all you mubsters. David Underhill says, yay, early Sunday for me. 5:20 AM. Jeepers. Rick H is with us as well. How you doing, Rick? That's Jan, William Boney, Mark Berry. Rick H, around 12:13 PM, Western Washington. Welly Bob's here. Evening all. Visitors here, so we'll be listening with my earbuds. That's sneaky, that. It's just like taking earbuds into an exam. No, I'm not listening to anything on my earbuds anyway.
No, I'm not using the calculator on my watch.
Yeah, I'm not using the calculator on my watch at all. David Under says, bugger the visitors. Well, don't bugger the visitors. They probably wouldn't appreciate that. Play it through the house. Yeah, put it on the Bluetooth speakers. Pump it out around the house.
Make sure they subscribe.
Yeah. Nicholas Barlow says, good evening, everyone. How you doing? I've always got my phone in hand and everyone knows. Well, I tell them Saturday evening is mub time. Bless your heart. Dutch Jan says, on evenings like this, I really miss my third monitor. I miss having a second monitor, to be fair. G-Zone Gamer says, hi Mike, how you doing? Adam N says, hi everybody. Lucky Man says, don't forget to hit the like button, please. Wise words, Lucky Man. Wise words. David O says, I love Seattle. Best thing about Seattle is it's thousands of miles from here. Seattle gets a rough ride, doesn't it, sometimes?
You're well behind, by the way.
I am well behind yet, sorry.
Arsene Lupin asks, which B550 to buy, Tomahawk or something else?
I will, actually, loud and clear, sounds good. I'm just going to fast forward through some of the chat. If there's any questions that have been asked, which I'm not picking up on or I haven't said hello to, I'm not being rude, just ask again or say hello. Aletta's with us. How you doing, Aletta? And Benny Hill. J Rich says, hi Mike and Kath. HM says, I wish Montec cases were in stock more often. I think in the UK they generally tend to be available quite a lot. I could be wrong. I've not bought one yet, but I do see them advertised almost daily on Facebook, it seems, by various companies. Nick Barnes says, Mike's subtitles are out of sync. Oh, damn it.
They're never very good with your accent.
No.
They're quite amusing.
ZS, I've got a used B550M motherboard, Ryzen 5 5500 and RX 6600. I'm enjoying high settings gaming on a 1440p gaming monitor. Did not spend that much in the end, so I don't agree. That is what this is all about.
But ZS was the one from Croatia that was
right.
cheap parts. You've explained all that.
The thing is, in order to, well, you can disagree if you like, but
Of course they can.
that is your prerogative. But what you've done there is you've bought a motherboard, which is PCI Express Gen 3, and a processor, which is PCI Express Gen 3, I believe. And you've got a PCI Express Gen 4 graphics card, which I think is only ×4, PCI Express Gen 4 ×8. So your graphics card, in theory, is only running PCI Express Gen 3 ×8. So you're actually leaving a little bit of performance on the table there, potentially. Especially if you're gaming at 1440p, where the bandwidth is going to be possibly better or more saturated. But saying that, if you're happy with it, it runs, and you're playing 1440p and you haven't spent a lot, then that is what it's all about. I personally, as someone who has I'm not saying knowledge, that sounds stupid, but I would generally not pair an RX 6600 with a PCI Express Gen 3 motherboard or processor, because to me it just feels wrong. It works, it's fine, and people do it, but to me it just, I don't know, it feels wrong. And I think if I built a system like that, doing that as well, I would almost feel like I had to tell the buyer that it may not perform as well as it could do because of these factors, but you're getting it cheaper. So it just adds another layer of complexity to the sell for me personally. But if you're happy with it, that's absolutely cool, because that's what it's all about. Aletta says, PC parts prices is even killing off upper end builds too. It definitely will be, because the money is just, well, first of all, your money is not going to buy as much as it did. And you're potentially overpaying for something which isn't that great. And it just seems you're just giving money away. And for the majority of people, they've kind of got a price point in their head. So if you're looking at buying a budget PC, you're going to be looking about £300, maybe £400 for a budget PC. Mid-range is going to be somewhere between 400 and maybe 600, let's say. And then from 600 upwards is kind of like your high-end builds. At least in my mind it is. That's how I separate it. So if I'm selling a mid-range PC, it's going to be somewhere between 400 and 600 pounds, give or take. If I'm selling a low-end PC, it's going to be kind of up to 3, maybe 4 at a push. Anything over 6, I would class it as a high-end build. But yeah, those are my segments. Think whatever you think. It's cool. While Bill's in the house, says evening all. How you doing, well, Bill? Well, Bill. Dutch Jan says second-hand is even very expensive. Yes, I was saying this actually earlier in the chat. I noticed today there is still the whole GPU thing where GPUs were basically scarce and people were paying ridiculous money. That can also is now being kicked down to us. So those people that bought expensive cards back then, who are now selling them or trading them in for other newer cards, they're still expecting to get back at least a percentage of what they paid for that card. So I noticed today there's somebody in Bristol selling a MSI Gaming Trio X 16 gigs 6900 XT. And they want £600 for it, which you can almost get a 6950 XT for similar money, brand new. So that's where things are. So there, yeah, the can is thoroughly being kicked down the road. Benny Hill, prices in the UK are terrible at the moment. Sadly, the second-hand market price are going nuts too. I 100% agree. There's that weird thing where there's expectations on both sides as the buyer and the seller. So yeah, the buyers are expecting cheap PCs because everything is cheaper now, but it's not. Yeah, it's very weird. Yes?
Des Duckers, have you turned off your Expo on your AM5?
I haven't, no. I'm still running Expo. I was waiting for somebody to ask about that. No, I'm still running it. I am on the latest BIOS though, so I should be okay. Although...
Arsene asks... sorry. Oh, I've lost it now.
She's lost it.
X570 over... Is X570 better than B550?
Yes. Yeah, X570 is basically full fat AM4. B550 is a kind of cut down version, so less PCI Express lanes, generally similar VRM, but normally a cut down feature stack. So if you're looking at adding extra M.2 drives or expansion cards, or just want more USB or faster USB, X570 is generally the way to go. Although B550 did a particularly good job, I feel, for AM4, so it's not always quite the cut down that you think it is. It's mostly going to be down to your PCI Express lanes. Yes?
Captain White has put his specs down for his PC and wants to know how much you think he paid.
Oh God, okay, alright, I'll have to get to that.
At the ages.
I know. Mike Berry says, Mike must be psychic. Just bought an old B450 Tomahawk Max as a project machine, cost £50. That is, yeah. The B450 Tomahawks, the Max and the Max 2s, have been going second hand for anywhere between £40 and £60 for the last 3 years. That is one of the things which has remained pretty stable. Where else do we get to? Matthew Day's with us, just microwave in. Skystalker says hi, and hi from Tina. How you doing, Tina? And Sky, obviously. Where do we get to? Mookie MC says, I wish I lived closer to Mike. A good price for a PC. Yeah, the one I sold this week was, well, both of them really were bargains. The Intel one specifically was, yeah, ridiculous. But then what I quite often do is, because we get sent things for review, cases, etc., etc., what I try and do is, if I'm selling on a PC, I try and get back what I paid for the parts that I've actually bought. Anything which I've been sent free of charge, I try to basically just let it go with the build. So, for instance, that PC which went out this week had the Citadel Mesh ATX, which retails for about 100 quid. So I could have asked for like 40, 50 quid value on it, but I didn't. I just, whatever. I totted. I wish I had it still on the board. I normally got my whiteboard up there with my list of prices on. So yeah, I basically threw in the case, and what I think there's something else on there which I gave away. Oh yeah, basically the motherboard, because it was the Strix motherboard which I picked up really cheaply off Kieran. Done a very good deal, even though it cost me dearly in time and worry lines, etc. I still let it go at like a ridiculous price. So just pass it on, basically trying to clear the hallway so I can actually get to the hallway without having to juggle past boxes all the time, which is a real pain. Although they did try and beat me down on price as well, because I originally listed it for, I think it was 6, and they said, "We'll give you 500," and I was kind of like thinking, just I'll be glad to see the back of it. And I thought, no, I can't. I've been offered 550 by somebody else, but they said they couldn't pick it up for a little while, so it's like, if you do 550, I'll do that. I'll drop 50 on it. So anyway, Mark Berry says there's not much affordable motherboards around, even on Facebook Marketplace. No, there isn't. I agree. And a lot there seems to be. Now this is something which you're going to see a lot of, especially in the used market on eBay, Facebook, Craigslist, all those kinds of things. You're going to see motherboards going cheaply as being faulty or untested. Especially anything which uses a LGA socket, which basically has pins on the motherboard, because those pins are so darn fragile, and unless you've actually got the ability to check the pins and physically put a processor inside the socket and get it to fire up, I would not recommend buying a used or second-hand LGA based motherboard, because you just don't know if those pins are going to make contact. They might even look perfect, but it's not until you actually put a processor in there that you know for sure. And if you're not using things like PayPal, buyer protection, stuff like that, or someone you actually know and trust, you're risking a lot of money for a motherboard which potentially could be dead. So those are going to be causing problems in the used market in the coming weeks and months. Wasn't a problem with AM4 before because we had that PGA thing, nice socket. The only thing I had to worry about was basically if anything had been mangled, like a USB port or something. But anyway. Freedom Mouse 1984 says, "Hi Mike and Kath, hope you're both doing well." Yeah, it's not too bad. Yes, Kath.
Adam asks, anything you didn't like about the Citadel ATX, still good value at £100?
The Citadel ATX was a great case. I liked it a lot, and it was my daily driver for the longest time until I actually got the Lianli 216 down there. And between the two, arguably there's not really a great deal between them. I did like the fans that were included and the hub, which did work with PWM. So yeah, the Citadel Mesh ATX, I'm not sure still if it justifies that £100 price tag. That was my biggest bone of contention. If it was £80, I would have no hesitations whatsoever about buying another one for myself personally, or recommending it wholeheartedly. But at £100, I know cases are getting expensive, and it is a decent case. There's a lot of stuff included. It's just, at £100, it's in a much different kind of area of other potential cases. So yeah, it's a tough one for me, that. I like the case a lot, and I think it looked good and it worked well. Cooling was excellent, etc. But it's just a little bit too expensive for my liking at the moment. If you can get it if you get it for 90 or below, absolutely perfect. Yeah, no qualms whatsoever.
JB's Arcade Mods, where's Popster this evening?
I don't know. Poppy's gone out. She's because the weather's got a little bit milder. She's been going out. She didn't come back home last night, which was rather upsetting.
I think she did, because George said he heard her playing with Flame.
Right.
But we didn't hear her.
No.
And usually she sleeps with me, so.
Terry Trickett's with us. Terry, thank you for your email. Appreciated that. Benny Hill says, that's what I'm still running, Mike. 1070, can't afford the RTX cards. 1070 is still a great card. I was when I got the PC ready that I sold, and I was doing some benchmarking and some Time Spy and all that kind of stuff. I thought to myself, actually, yeah, this is a pretty decent card. Now, my particular 1070 had very, very minor coil whine when it was cold. As soon as it warmed up a little bit, after a minute or so of gaming, it was absolutely fine, basically silent. But there was that really weird little bit of coil whine on it, which was a little bit annoying. I figured it was down to possibly the VRM cooler not quite being on tight enough. So I did strip it down, give it a clean up, give it a new coating of MX4 thermal paste, which sadly didn't really change it, although it did drop the temperatures by about 10 degrees. So I think the paste was the original paste that had been on there. So I was glad that I did that. But yeah, 1070 is still a great card. I loved it. The 1070 I didn't like when it came out, but after about a year or so of it being on the market and the price came down to a more sensible price, like about £200, yeah, it was a cracking card. It really was.
Wild Bill.
Wild Bill.
Do.
Paul Lamont. Ooh,
Computers have priced
just got in time.
out of the market, and I think we should all take up sailing and save ourselves loads of money.
That's a good idea. Who said that? You or?
That's what Wild Bill.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what Kath says. Yeah, PC. If you are a conspiracy theorist, or you think potential conspiracies, it's almost like they are trying to price us out of having PCs and having mobile devices. So anything which is static is getting more expensive, like PC stuff. Whereas mobile phones are generally getting quite cheap. And mobile phones are really good for tracking you and working out what you're doing and selling your personal information, such as your browsing habits, shopping habits, your walking habits. Hell, even if you've got like your smartwatch on, your smartwatch knows more about you than probably your family, because it knows exactly where you've been, down to GPS coordinates. So it knows what shops you've been in, how long you spent in the shops, and all that kind of stuff. And that data does get sold by the likes of Google, Apple, Fitbit, Huawei, you name it, they all do it.
Supermarket loyalty cards.
So, yeah,
Use them.
you get where I'm coming from there. Right, where do I go to?
Captain White, can you look at his specs?
All right, I'll do that next. Mark Barry says, GPUs do seem to be coming down though, hoping to buy a 2060 Super for son's PC soon. And thank you for the super chat. That is from, where's viewer activity? Captain White, £1. Thank you very much, sir. And Mick Woods as well. Can I? No, I can't click on that and find it. That's annoying. There we go. Get you on the screen. Captain White. That's right. Let's find Captain White's thing then. Where did he say it?
If you go right.
Captain White. I got you. RX 580. I know. I was supposed to guess, was I, first of all?
Guess how much it was. It was a bit of fun for the chat.
Ah.
But it's. If you go to the bottom, it's a bit higher up.
I can't find it now.
It's at 9:05, but you ain't got time.
No, I ain't got timestamps on mine. Ah, there we go. Is that the Pro DH? Yes. Thank you for the super chat there, Rick. $10. More co-op goodie funds. Thank you, sir. There, I have some Maisie Cam. Not focus on her. Captain White's question there. Let's get to that one. I said I'd do it. So MSI B550 Pro VDH Wi-Fi, 16 gigs of Kingston Fury Beast 3200, Ryzen 7 5800X 3D. That seems like a really bizarre combination, but anyway. Antec NX 800 case, Silverstone Gold PSU, 1TB NVMe Kingston MV2, Deepcool AK620 cooler. How much do you think I paid? If it's all brand new stuff, motherboard has got to be 100 at least. The Kingston Fury RAM Beast probably 40. The Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, I honestly have no idea what price those go for at the moment. I've not got a clue. I guess, what, 250? I have no idea is the answer. The Antec case, I don't know, probably about 50 to 60, I guess. Silverstone power supply, that's got to be another 60, I guess, maybe 70. The NV2 drive, £40. Deepcool AK620. Those go for very weird prices at times. I think, if I remember rightly, it was about £50 when I reviewed it. maybe 55. So I'm going to say around about 40 because you probably got a deal on it. So let's see. My nose is whistling again. Do apologise. KZH says, Mike, do you reckon the new PC part market will stagnate in a few years' time due to lack of demand for and use cases for high-end PCs? Yeah, I think so. I think it's happening now. Christian says, I recently upgraded to DDR5 from DDR4 and the price of my motherboard was $400 while my new CPU was $600. At this point, getting a motherboard and RAM is more expensive than your CPU. Yes, it is mental. Captain White says, hint, I drove 130 miles to pick it up. Oh, right, it must be really good value then. Danny D says, I wouldn't buy second hand, to be honest with you. It depends what it is. Some things are like, it depends how second hand it is as well. There's a massive sliding scale of second hand between kind of opened as new and heavily soiled, mined on for 30 years in a house with smokers and pets. So there is a very wide gamut between them. So I wouldn't rule out used or second hand altogether, but I get where you're coming from. Dutch Jan says, question, not a question, but a comment. In Germany, a MSI Z770 M-Power motherboard, €150. Bloody hell. Michael T says, sorry I'm late. Hi, Kath, Mike and Mothers. I'll get to the answer to that question in a minute. Damo69 says, cheaper now? Has anyone seen the price of organic eggs? Yeah. It's, yeah. The supermarket shop is a very interesting one these days. What was it I looked at the other day?
And also, they're charging you for free-range eggs, even though they aren't allowed out. So you're getting charged for free-range eggs.
That is actually a scam.
Chicken eggs.
So I'm not sure if you've heard that properly or not, but basically at the moment here in the UK, because of the bird thing, all birds are locked up.
I think they're allowed out again now.
So they were classing free-range eggs as free-range eggs and paying the premium for them, but the animals are all locked up. So yeah, that's been a bit of a scam recently.
And no one's mentioned it.
J Rich says X570 is better for overclocking too. I'm not sure if that is actually true. Is that a bona fide fact? I'm guessing in general you'd expect an X570 board to be built to a higher standard, but I don't know whether overclocking would definitely be affected, because things like the B550 Unify and the Unify X from MSI were extremely good overclocking boards, and actually in a lot of cases better than the X570 version from MSI, but then other brands may differ, so you could be absolutely right. Benny Hill says, off topic, but any e-bike battery experts here? Benny Hill says, my battery pack only lasts to only charges to 74%, then indicates a full charge. Now there's probably a couple of reasons for that. A lot of batteries, especially lithium ions and stuff like that, don't like to be fully charged and kept fully charged and then kind of down to nothing and full charges. They like to be up to about 80% charge and then used and then recharged. Don't ever leave any modern batteries on charge all the time or for extended periods, because it basically kills the batteries. They don't like it, so you're better off leaving it off and charging it for just a couple of hours, or have some sort of timer switch so you can just do it for a couple of hours, turn it off, do it for a couple of hours and do that way. You potentially could get your battery back to full health by charging it to 74%, using it a little bit, don't charge it again, use it a bit more, and get it down to like about 20%, and then charge it up to about 74%. Gradually, if you keep on doing that, it will kind of hopefully re-find where it can charge to. But sometimes when the damage has been done, the cells are basically degraded, so it won't go any better than that. You might need to change some of the cells in the battery pack.
What is it, Flame?
What's that? Canavinilos 80. I butchered that, my apologies. That is my prerogative as host. You can't even find a B450 these days. Everyone's upgraded their boss and bought a 5600p. Yeah, that's true. J Rich always wanted a B450 M Bazooka or mortar motherboard. Yeah, those were very popular. The B450 range MSI had it pretty much covered. Yes.
William Bodie, can you do a video on how to undervolt a GPU with MSI burner?
Yeah, I think so. I will put that in the memory bank. Actually, I'll write it up because I've got basically nothing on the schedule at the moment to do videos on, so that's a good one. Undervolting GPU, got it. Right, we'll do. Lucky Man says, my B450 Tomahawk Max will be on sale on Discord for 50 quid. There you go. If someone needs a cheap board, head over to our Discord.
And Benny Hill says, can you scroll down? He asked that question 20 minutes ago.
Okay. Sorry. Captain White says, I think the used market is in a weird position. Some people haven't adjusted to the new real-world value of some items. Lower-end GPU can vary wildly. That's very true. Things like the 5800, like the RX 580s, if you pick one up from AliExpress, you can get one for like 55 quid, brand new, or kind of brand new, refurbished brand new, however you want to see that particular thing. But you try and buy one on Facebook Marketplace and they're like 100 quid, and in probably worse condition. But the one on Facebook Marketplace, you could go around to the house and collect it, whereas the one from AliExpress or whatever may not actually ever turn up. Or may turn up broken like mine did.
And also, can you look at an AIO brand of valid... I can't even say it.
Okay.
And I've written it down for you. An Antec Prime AP201 case.
Okay, well done. Cameron says untested bricked. Yes, that's right. David Aiken says a couple of years ago we were picking up B450 Aorus Elites on Amazon Marketplace for 35-40 quid. I know, I remember it very well. I think we both did, didn't we? Or did you buy one and I bought it off you, or I bought one and you bought it off me? I can't remember. There was a couple around at that price. Sardin84, I do mate. AliExpress RX 580 legit, 65 quid. Yeah, some of them, was it Risk 51 I think is one of the brands that you should probably look out for. They seem to be pretty good.
Dave said you both bought one.
Ah, we did. I thought so. Des Ducker says they put one hell of a disclaimer on the beta BIOS. Great. Camelot says the 580 is a 570. Well, it's technically it's not. It is actually a genuine 580 class GPU on there, but it's the cut down version, so it's the SP2048, which originally was only released in China. So that is where a lot of that comes from. That it is a cut down model which performs better than an RX 570, but is quite close in some respects. So that is where people got the misconception that the AliExpress cards are 570s. They're not, they are 580s, they're just slightly cut down versions. It's kind of like the difference between, I'm trying to think now, I was going to say the 1060 3 gig versus 6 gig, but it's not that drastic a difference. It's more like, no, I can't think of a modern equivalent, sorry. Mark Berry says, I bought my son a EVGA 1070 last year for about 130. Not worth that now though. I feel really bad because Matthew Day bought a GTX 1070 off of me. Now there was a local guy who worked in an office and they were doing office clearance. They upgraded all their PCs, GPUs, and he had, I think it was 7 or so GTX 1070s, EVGA ones, and I bought 5 of them. And I think they were, I'm sure they're like £200 each or something, which is ridiculous. sure it's that sort of money. But I already had buyers for kind of some of them already, and also because GPUs were getting to the point where I could see over the coming time GPUs were getting scarce. So I bought a few, and yeah, Matthew Day had one. And I don't think he's even used it yet. I don't think he's even plugged it in. And obviously, it's gone down in price quite a bit. But that is the thing. If you procrastinate on your PC parts, they are going to devalue. Although
Dave Aiken bought one.
You could find it.
For 200.
Yeah, Dave had one off me, definitely. Yeah, it was. Those were the times. Cannabis says AM4 has pins on the CPU. Yes, yes it does. Captain White says, have you seen the Antec Prime AP201? Looks like a great micro ATX case. Yeah, I think the AP201 is basically a very similar version of the GameMax Spark. I think it's based on a similar chassis or similar layout. I could be wrong. Canal says the 1070 is a sweet spot at the moment. If you can pick them up for a decent price. I think the one I sold in the PC that I sold this week, I bought it off someone who was like a friend of the family, so I got a pretty good price. I think it was still like 120. So yeah, 120, 130 for a 1070 is about what you'd expect to pay. And they make me feel good. They make me feel better about my purchase. And Benny Hills just said the same thing. Cheers, Mike. You made me feel better now.
Matthew Day said, I still haven't finished the build.
He's terrible. Absolutely terrible. James Masilio says, that's a big mouse pad. Yes, it is. If you... It is a big mouse pad. Well, it's not that big, but it's yeah, it's pretty big. It's big if you're just using a mouse. If you're using a mouse and a keyboard, it's yeah.
Oh, well, Bill, always finding it strange that someone will complain endlessly about paying £200 on a decent motherboard and then go out for dinner and spend the same and think nothing of it.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
When we buy our 29p sandwich.
We do buy... Actually, I'm going to approve this once and for all. Well, not once and for all, but... I wonder if I got any of my cheap sandwiches left in there. Right, a little bit on that. So, just so you can see, we're not lying. There you go. Reduced. That was splashing out a bit because it is a chicken and bacon Caesar. So that was reduced from £3 down to 74p. That was a good bargain. But we also got the prawn mayo sandwich. That was reduced from £2.75 down to 69p. So that was dinner for less than £1.50. We are quite tight. Actually, before I sit that down, I want to get some of that nose spray for my nose to lubricate. You should videos of the unboxing of a microwave, the soda stream, and also the biscuit taste challenge, which was hilarious. Well, for me it was. For you lot, it probably won't be hilarious at all. Oh shit! I didn't put the sandwiches back in the fridge. I'll do it. Oh, Kath will do it. Right, let's get this. This is a nasal thing. I think my nose whistles because it's dry. Let's find out. Ugh. Sorry about that. Sorry, William, about getting stuff on your mouse mat. I wonder if that's going to help. Okie dokie. Right, where were we? Michael Craig got an Asus Prime B550 Plus for 71 quid on eBay last year around June. Went into a 5600G build for my friend's birthday. Solid deals right there, just need to find them. There are some deals out there, no doubt about it. There are some deals to be had, but I feel that you have to be a lot more conscientious now and considerably more active at actually trying to find them. Whereas previously, you could go to somewhere like UK Hot Deals and there'd be maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 motherboard deals a day. Whereas now they're basically very, very far and few between. Now we're in a lucky position, relatively so. There were some bargains to be had at Easter for Easter sales, like 20% off at eBay and stuff. Sorry, cat's gonna, oh no, I thought the cat was gonna knock the camera off the table then. That'd be upsetting. Yeah, because we've got bank holiday stuff at the moment, we've got May Day bank holiday, which is Monday this week. So there may be some sort of bank holiday deals going on for UK distributors and suppliers, etc. You've also got the King's Coronation, which is next week. So there is another bank holiday next week, next Monday. So potentially there'll be kind of coronation specials, etc. Hopefully some coronation chicken. I like a bit of coronation chicken, especially if it's reduced. That'll be good to see if there's any deals happening. Then at the end of May in the UK, you've got the Whitsun half-term holiday, so you get the half-term sales. Quite often, a lot of places like CCL, Box, etc., eBuyer will do kind of like half-term deals. So we're in a relatively good season for it, especially being that this is when things slow right down in terms of like the PC real boom is normally sort of the darker months, kind of November through to February, March. Anything over that, it's normally a little bit quieter, unless there is something particularly interesting in the market which is going on, which then stimulates more purchasing. But realistically, I can't see that happening, not for the foreseeable, unless if AMD come out with the 7600 or 7600 XT graphics card and it is 250, I think that will shake things up a little bit. Because then people will be thinking, well, that's not a bad price. Maybe it's time to jump on board. But we'll see. I don't think it will. I think it's going to be 299, if not 350. Bobby C. How you doing, Bobby C? Says, I do agree about how pricing has killed the budget build. I have a Ryzen 7 7700X and Asus ROG Strix X670E crosshair combo, nearly £1,000 just for those two components. I feel you completely. My setup there, 7700X and a MSI B550 Edge Wi-Fi. Motherboard was 220, reduced from 250, and the processor I think was 250. So like £500 just for the main platform. Even that to me is like ridiculous, really, for what it is. And arguably, I don't notice the difference between that and what would be with, I don't know, my 3900X or my 5800X on a inexpensive B550 board. And in fact, I replaced the B550 Gaming Plus and the 5800X with that, and I don't notice a difference. I genuinely don't. Actually, if anything, that one takes longer to boot. But it's got double the RAM because DDR5 is generally 32 gigs rather than 16 gigs, so I do notice that slightly. But because it's just a streaming PC, or I use it for making video content, etc., I basically don't notice it at all. I could probably actually go and have like an Intel NUC up there and I probably wouldn't notice it. David Aiken, that's a good, yeah, well done mate, that's a good analogy. The AliExpress 580 is more like a GDR6 3060 Ti versus a GDR6X 3060 Ti. Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. There's a super chat come in from David Aiken, thank you very much sir. And David says, the 8GB VRAM panic will kill the budget used market. I don't know if it will. I would have to play devil's advocate a little bit with that one, but thank you for the 199 super chat. The VRAM panic will actually make it, I believe, better for buyers, because there's going to be people which will kind of go along with the hype and they will sell their graphics card to buy a new 12 gig or 16 gig card. So they'll be trying to get rid of their old 8 gig card. Now, in the back of their mind, regardless of what they paid for that particular graphics card, they're going to be thinking, this doesn't have enough VRAM. Because that is the reason why they're swapping the card out. because it doesn't have enough VRAM. But what they're forgetting is it doesn't have enough VRAM for them. For other people, it may be absolutely fine. So if you're looking for a graphics card, and you can probably get a really good bargain, most of the VRAM issues are going to be with AAA titles, which historically are poorly optimized to begin with anyway. So give it a couple of months and I think the whole thing will settle down massively. But good point, David, thank you. There's another super chat from Mick Woods. £5, thank you very much, sir. It says, NAS prices. Considering a Synology DS220 Plus with 2x4 terabyte, researching it and found your review from 2 years ago. How's it been since? You'd have to ask Ugly Bob, because he's got it now.
But he's on away.
He's away this week, so he's not in the chat. To be honest with you, it depends what you want it for. If you want a NAS for big backup stuff, like backing up, I use our NAS to back up CAF's PC, my editing PC, my streaming PC, my laptop, and I think there's another one as well. Oh, the front room PC, which is now sold, so no, it doesn't back that up anymore. So it backs up 4 PCs in its entirety, and also every single video that I make, I put all the content, all the footage onto the NAS. Then after about a year, I delete everything other than the main MP4 file, which is what you watch on a daily basis. So if anything ever happens to YouTube, I can always upload the videos again. I've got about 4 terabytes of data on mine, and I've got 4 terabyte drives, which leaves me with something about 11 terabytes of storage after all the file management stuff and all that. So I'm down at the moment to around about 6 terabytes left, and for that purpose it's fine for just data storage and access and use it as shared drives. For using things like Plex and other things, or virtual machines, Docker containers, etc., I feel that you probably might want to go up a little bit higher, because the 2 gig of RAM limitation is a little bit of a limitation. You can just put random 4 gig sticks in, which I did on mine. My one in the front room is now on 6 gigabytes of RAM. It still isn't the fastest because it's only a dual core with hyperthreading. So again, depending on what you're running on there, you may find it not as good as possibly the Asus Store ones, which you do get a lot more hardware for your money, but you don't get that slick operating system that you get with Synology. Probably one of those things that if you want to know more about it, you're probably best off in the Discord just grabbing me for a few minutes, and or email me, whatever, or even just Messenger or something, and go through exactly what it is you want to do with it and see what I feel from my experience would be best for you going forward. Hopefully that answers your question, Mick. And there's another super chat from the Bronx 9. How you doing? £5 super chat, thank you very much. And is that a new member as well? There's a star by the side of it. What does that mean? I never know what that star means. What does the star mean by the side of someone?
Oh yeah, I do. He is a member, I expect.
Purple star. Oh yeah, purple star, so that's membership, isn't it? The Bronx 9. I don't recognise that username though.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm rubbish. I do apologise. I'm a Coconut says, speaking of announced, did you know that Drobo went out of business? I kind of thought that was on the cards a little while back, but I didn't know it was actually official yet. I do watch NAS Compares, and I do pick up sort of snippets from there. How's that? Oh, flame. William Bodie says, I did go from GTX to RTX, and the GTX will go your way when I find another way to send it, not using DHL. Yeah, actually, I should say that. For anyone who is considering sending us here at Mugs Unboxing any gifts or basically anything, if you're outside of the UK, don't bother, because it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Shipping stuff to the UK at the moment is ridiculous. Our good friend of the channel also, got to think, Stuart Cleary. He sent a case over, and it was supposed to be delivered on Friday. This stream was supposedly going to be unboxing that case, and going through it all with you, but that still hasn't turned up. They held it captive at customs and basically said, well, you're not getting it unless you pay us X amount of money, which was ridiculous for what they wanted for it. Consider it's just a PC case. Yeah, it was. There's those stupid inflated charges where they add on their service charge and handling charge and all that other nonsense. So, yeah, F you Parcel Force, bastards. Anyway, so it's extremely expensive on both sides. So if you're sending things, it's going to cost, and for us receiving things, paying import duty and stuff, it's just ridiculous. So unless it's something which you can kind of send in a very small envelope and mark it as like zero value or engineering sample, no value or no resale value, it's still going to be expensive. So yeah, just bear that in mind, please. And also, for those of you that have bought hoodies this week, they have gone out. They went out on Friday.
But there is the bank holiday.
But we didn't get there until after 6 o'clock p.m. So it wouldn't have gone out on Monday anyway because of the bank holiday. So chances are that'll be Tuesday or thereafter. It's on Parcel Force 48 tracked, I believe.
No, it's not tracked. Signed for.
Signed for, sorry.
One of them signed for, one of them.
So yeah,
second.
Parcel Force 48, which basically means a week.
Or
or whatever
Royal
it is.
Mail.
Royal Mail 48-hour delivery basically means sometime that week.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if the wind's on your side. Anyway.
William Bodie, that was Flame. He keeps moaning.
Yes. That was Flame.
He wants liver, but we can't. We haven't got any.
You see there's a bit of abuse going on for the Conservatives in the chat. I won't try and get drawn into that too much. Freedom House says, yeah, I tried to buy something from your Tate's Museum, is that? And yeah, the shipping costs twice as much as the thing I wanted. Yeah, it's almost, I don't know. Oh God. I don't understand what is going on in the world. So on one half, there is kind of like the globalists who want it all to be one big, happy, united world under one rulership or whatever, but yet they don't want to let us have the perks of having cheap shipping without taxes and stuff. But then there's the other lot who don't want to be one homogenized country world. We want to have our own individual identities.
In our 15 minutes, it is.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on. It's just confusing. J. Rich, Brexit nonsense. Well, Brexit still hasn't happened. The whole thing of what Brexit was actually about has never happened. And in the end, the Conservatives kind of caved in and went Brexit light, which is why we're screwed, because we're not in Europe and we're not out of Europe. We're in this kind of little dangly middle area, so we're being screwed in every single direction possible.
So they're just doing what they want.
Yeah.
Not for the people.
Rick H says, I order off Amazon UK in the US. Yeah, that is one way of doing it, actually. If you want to send us anything, if you're an Amazon customer, you can use Amazon in various countries with the same account, or you can ship to another address. So there's Poppy. If you want to send anything, you can use Amazon to do it. So buy it on Amazon US, but add the UK as a shipping thing, and you should be absolutely fine. Possible. Not for everything. Mostly Amazon stuff. So
You're being missed, Poppy.
your mileage may vary. Lucky Man says, Asshole Customs. Exactly. They are arses.
We are very grateful for everyone who sent
Oh yeah, we
something.
are totally massively grateful. It's the frustrations that... It's the same for us. Like, if I want to send anything out to any of you guys, like... How was that?
That was Flame.
Yeah. If you want to send anything out to us... Sorry, if we want to send anything out to you guys, there's that kind of goodwill thing. So we're thinking, yeah, it's awesome. We'll kind of spread the love. If we've maybe got a CPU cooler or something which we haven't paid for technically because it's been sent for review, we can send it out to a viewer as a giveaway, etc. But then you've got, where does the viewer live? Oh, they live in Northern Ireland, Ireland, Spain, wherever it is, United States. So then this thing, which is basically not cost you anything, you're trying to give away out of the goodness of your own heart, then you go to the post office or the mail service and they say, well, that's going to cost like $60 or something to post. And you're like, are you shitting me? It's like a £30 CPU cooler and you're going to charge me $60 to send the thing. You're off your mind. It's just, yeah, it just really kind of sours the whole thing. And I think I'm just getting more and more greedy. Again, it goes back to that thing. When the shipping container prices went up, that was like the green light for everyone to go, right, let's all put our prices up. And it's just getting worse and worse.
And then you get the free shipping thing on some companies.
And Amazon will do free shipping for the same thing. It's like, God's sakes, man. So actually, in a lot of cases, if we were to give away stuff to you guys watching as giveaways, often it's better value for us to buy the thing brand new in your country of origin and send it directly to you than it is to post something that we were given for free. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Anyway.
But then I think that's because they want you to use Amazon all the time, don't they?
Definitely.
And by doing that,
Altaporo says, it's really nice to catch you. Have enjoyed and benefited from your great videos. California here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and glad you could make one of our live streams. And I'm glad that I actually saw your... Is that a picture of a cat on your profile? I just noticed David Underhill's got a cat on his, and Altapro.
I got one on my lap.
James Miscellaneous says, more centralised control without losing the perks of ripping the people off. Yes.
Always.
Mark Berry says, I bought something off eBay 10 days ago. Still not here. Phone DPD today, and computer says no. Same thing. I paid for the case from Stuart. Paid the customs charge and their additional auxiliary charges for handling it, and put in Friday the 28th as being my preferred delivery day. This on Thursday, early in the day. So totally expected to see it. Saturday has come and gone, and it's still not here. So I'm guessing now I've paid for it, they'll say, oh, sorry, we've lost it. And there's Poppy. Hey, Poppy Dora, how you doing?
You said hello?
Say hello in the chat to Poppy. She does appreciate it. William Bodie's saying there, yeah, I think the French did take the goods halfway through as part of the revolution. It's probably some yellow jacket somewhere has got it. David Arnold says, like the Channel Islands, near France, but sort of the UK. Yeah. Ian Hornsey. Hi, Mike. Hi, Ian. Just got an Arctic liquid freezer 360 for 80 quid. It's pretty good. And a Sapphire Pulse RX 6600 XT for 95 pounds. Both new from BHF. BHF, where's BHF? Is that or is that B&H or BHF? Who's BHF? I don't know who that is.
VHS went years ago.
Yeah. Benny Hill says, Every, hello, can you hear me now? Hear you, I can see you. Mark Berry, every equals lose every parcel. Yeah, they are. I'm not sure what it is with delivery companies. Well, I kind of do know what it is.
Our delivery girls are nice, though.
They're generally nice, yeah. But there's
Give them that.
a lot of companies, they fall down the same trap where, because they want to do this kind of whole globalization thing, they want to have everybody, or they want all the market, they basically subcontract. So rather than actually have their own people employed by them in their vehicles delivering stuff, which they do to some extent. Ah, well done.
It's not me, it's Ian's, but it...
And and they've got basically a load of agency drivers. Now, some agency drivers are clearly more committed to the calls than others. And therein lies the problem. If you've ever worked anywhere where they employ agency staff,
Gonna say hello?
you know what agency staff are like. They turn up, some of them, diligent, do a good job, but some of them don't have the same kind of commitment, yeah, as their full-time staff, because they know that it's just they'll be there for a couple of days or maybe a week or maybe a month, and they got to go and find another job.
But
so
then on top of that, they usually get paid more than full-time staff, which then annoys the full-time staff.
Yeah.
It creates a massive atmosphere in your workplace. But they don't get paid holidays apparently, so it's okay.
Yeah. Freedom House says greed is the underlying problem. Unfortunately, it is. There's always this thing between the big argument between capitalism and communism, and neither one is actually right, because neither of them work if there's greed involved, which is the unfortunate thing. So you can't have a community or an equal community if there's greedy people in it, because they'll ruin it for the rest. And the same in a capitalist society. You can have businesses and you can make profits, but if there's people making greedy amounts of profits, it ruins it there. So I always get really upset when people start going down the whole kind of, oh, capitalism's bad, communism's good, or vice versa, whatever, because it isn't. Because as we all know, in every single walk of life, every single colour, creed, race, religion, group, whatever it is, there's always going to be someone who takes advantage of the situation and ruins it for the others. So it isn't one is good, one is bad. Everyone is inherently good and everybody has the potential of being bad. It's just some people are worse than others or more greedy than others.
How's that Coke doing, Mike? Lucky man wants to know.
Coke's good. I diluted it in this and it works really well. Oh, they've all said hello to Poppy. Bless your hearts. It's very good for the
Damo works
interaction.
agency jobs all day, every day on construction sites. I'm not saying everyone's like that.
Oh yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think on a construction site, it's probably. Well, actually, saying that, I guess it's probably the same there. There's gonna be some people that go there because it's a daily work, and they're gonna work their butts off because they're hoping that they'll get another day's work and another day's work. But there's also going to be people that go there and they know that it's kind of like just a couple of days. So if they piss around or if they nick a couple of taps or they mess up a conservatory roof or something along those lines, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? They don't have that same kind of, there isn't that kind of feedback or the potential of something biting you in the ass later on because, hey, they're going to be there a couple of days. But I guess, yeah, I know what you mean. David Aiken says, Amazon UK haven't been the same since Divock started. They always had tons of stock sold directly by Amazon and were always cheaper than everyone else. Now they're often beaten by competitors. Yeah, there has been a bit of that recently. I've noticed that Amazon hasn't been quite as good. And stock levels haven't been as good.
Sale days, I looked at stuff. I went to eBay and it was cheaper on there.
Yeah.
And that's their sale, they're like Prime Days or whatever.
Ian Hornsey, British Heart Foundation, excellent stuff. Lucky Man says, may get a Intel Arc A770, found some gaming. What you reckon, Mike? That does appear to be a very good value proposition at the moment, especially in the UK, because it's only about £20 or £30 dearer than the Intel's own A750. So that is pretty good. Kath's trying to show me something. Oh, look, Colin Hilton, thank you very much, sir, for your kind PayPal donation. Very much appreciated, sir. My nose is doing it again. Why does my nose whistle? Stupid. Lucky Man says £289. The thing is, I think the A770, if you're going to go with the A770, you better get the 16 gig version rather than the 8 gig version. I think spending £200 plus on a graphics card now, knowing what we know now, with the whole kind of 8 gig, is it enough sort of thing, potentially it's prudent to buy a card with more memory, purely because of that fact. I wouldn't go deliberately out of my way, but I would certainly weigh up the pros and cons and say, well, if a card with 16 gigs of RAM is only X amount of pounds more, is it worth erring on the side of caution to actually have that VRAM buffer and not need it, rather than buying a card with 8 gigs, and if a couple of more AAA titles come out which are poorly optimized and use an absolute shit ton of VRAM, you're going to be kind of like, I wish I'd have bought the card with more VRAM. I think there's going to be a lot of people kind of on the fence. It depends how much money you're spending. If you're spending £200 or less, I think you don't have to be quite as calculated about it. If you're spending £200 or more, which is quite an investment, then you probably should be looking slightly further forward, I feel. I don't know. Let me know what you think about it in the comments of that. Is the whole 8 gigs of RAM thing overblown? I'm kind of on the fence about it. Most of the games that I play on a regular basis, I've looked at the VRAM, and I do actually notice this now because I have the AMD overlay on the side. And generally I'm playing Fortnite at 1440p, medium settings or high settings, 120 frames per second because I cap it, because why have it faster than that? And normally the VRAM's about somewhere about 6 to 7 gigs. So do I really need more than that? I don't know. Potentially. And Fortnite is one of those games that can use a lot of VRAM. Also, I did try it with Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I've actually installed again and started playing. Or piloting. Flying. That's the word I was looking for. Flying. I've been flying. Although, there's something that pisses me off about that, because Microsoft Flight has real-time weather and also extra planes. And normally, I don't get time to play it unless it's at the end of the working day, which is kind of 10, 11, 12 o'clock. At which time, if I try to do what I want to do, which is to fly from Bristol Airport, Bristol International, which is BRS, I think, is the identification number of that airport, or is it GFFD or something?
Sky Stalker will give you some lessons, Mike.
Thank you, Sky.
He's only as good as he is because of you.
But flying at night from Bristol International to somewhere quite local, such as like Cardiff International Airport, that is the kind of flight that I probably would want to do. But because I start playing at 11 o'clock at night, it's dark. And flying isn't easy in daylight. Add in a little bit of darkness and not being able to see where you're going is horrendous. And being that I don't understand half of the instrumentation, so it's like, okay.
You should be able to set time.
You can set time of day manually, but I don't know why, I just leave it on there because I quite like the automatic weather so that it reflects what is actually going on. But then I need to either get up earlier or try and finish earlier so I can play the game before sunset. Luckily, the days are stretching out a little bit now, and it is going to be lighter later. So hopefully I will be able to do some nighttime or semi-nighttime flying on Microsoft Flight.
Colin Hilton has been trying for 12 months and still can't fly. Sky needs to help Colin.
Sky Stalker, Colin is your man. I think.
No, the other way round.
Yeah,
Colin,
that's it. Yeah, Colin Sky would be your man. Sky Stalker is I don't know if I should say this, but he basically can fly a plane pretty well. So if you want some tips, then I would suggest you two hook up. You're both in the Discord anyway, so maybe ping each other or something. Nick Barnes says, Mike, is that a DC-3 you're flying? Realistic British Airways flight? I do try and do the A320. I'm not bad with the A320, to be fair. I don't know why, but I seem to get on really well with the A320. And the Cessna I quite enjoy, but I feel that's a little bit light. I've actually done a couple of, in Microsoft Flight, there's the the landing or approaches. You can do famous approaches around the world, and I've been doing those and I've been getting some pretty decent results. So I think landing is the most important thing about flying. Flying itself and taking off is relatively like straightforward. It's the whole landing and stopping thing, which is the thing which I think most people would want to learn, and I quite enjoy doing that. So we might do that actually on a stream, either maybe on here, maybe in Discord one night or something. But we'll do some live streams of me landing planes.
Drinking Red Bull, still can't fly, Michael T.
You need more Red Bull, sir.
And Colin, I don't think you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh, I don't know.
Sky will.
Sky will. Old Man
Mike
Withers
is
says
rubbish.
probably 95% of graphics cards out in the world, probably globally, sorry, will be 8 gigs or less, possibly. Any game dev that makes a game that won't run on 8 gigs doesn't like money. It's not so much that, it's the game devs are probably not the ones which should be to blame. It's basically the distributors or the publishers, because they're the ones ultimately who hand over the final product. And they should be saying, well, we can't hand this over because it's very poorly optimized. And it does seem as well that Nvidia are getting a bit of a battering as well, because it seems that a lot of games, actually, the higher the RAM overhead, or VRAM overhead, the worse the Nvidia driver handles it. So some games actually do run better on AMD now. Lesser cards with more memory run better than Nvidia, which is, I never thought I'd hear that happen, but apparently it is happening. There you go. Sky Stalker says I was a flight instructor for 30 years. Adam N says, I'm guessing there are other more exotic airports than Bristol and Cardiff. Yes, but I wanted to do it in real time. I wanted to actually take off from Bristol International and fly over to Cardiff, because Cardiff is like 40 minutes by car, roughly. So the amount of time I have spare...
An hour with the smart motorways
Yeah.
and their cameras and
I was figuring
speeds.
it shouldn't take me more than, I don't know, quarter of an hour, 20 minutes maybe, to get from Bristol to Cardiff, from taxiing to the end. I think that's pretty good. Most people don't want to watch a long flight. It's the landings.
Damo69, speaking of flight sims, do you use a flight stick?
I do have a flight
Would
stick,
you
which is
consider
kindly...
reviewing such equipment?
I have a flight stick,
think we did review
which
it.
was sent in by Sky Stalker. Thank you very much, sir. And I did review it, I believe. Yeah, I'm sure I did review it. The Logitech Flight Stick Pro, I think it's called. But it is quite big and chunky, and my little desk, I don't always have it set up, so it is a very rare occasion that I get that out these days. Quite often I just grab the gamepad. Surprisingly, actually, Microsoft Flight works particularly well with a Xbox controller. Who would have thought it? So you can have that kind of almost arcade-like experience. It's not quite as good for things like taxiing and landing, because getting the trim on your rudder is really hard to do on a gamepad, whereas with the flight stick, obviously, is designed for that. So it will give you better results with a flight stick, definitely. Yeah, Damo69, yeah, we have done, yeah, the Logitech Flight Pro. Although, for someone getting into to start flying for the first time, you might be better off with a joypad or joystick.
But you're left-handed.
I'm left-handed as well, so that makes it slightly more awkward for me, because it's designed really for right-handed and left-handed control for the other pads, for the other surfaces.
You were proper there then.
Yeah, I was.
Last man standing UK.
Where are we? I'll go down through the list. Des Duckers, Star Wars Jedi Survival, Jedi Survivor, whatever, allocates 12 gigs of VRAM at 4K max settings, and it still can drop to 24 FPS. Yeah, it is very poorly optimized. If it runs badly on a 4090, it's basically in the same realms as Crysis, when that came out, or Far Cry. JB's Arcade Mod says, I'm 50 in December and I feel past it already, lol. Last Man Standing UK says, please call Nvidia the correct name, Ngridia. Yes, they are getting that way. Where are we?
It's flamey.
Benny Hill says, yep, went back and did the light airplane experience too. Landing hard, left side, wheel with no suspension, rocket paint up your spine. Ouch.
It's like that death slide at that park you went to.
Oh god, yeah.
That was
Damo69 says, hey Mike, have you ever done any sim racing stuff? Steering? I haven't, no. It's something actually I would like to do at some point. It's something I've always liked, or at least liked the thought of. The reality is, I kind of like the arcade feel, like the sliding and all that kind of stuff, which I don't think you can properly kind of get the experience of drifting in a sim because of the whole kind of lateral movement until the technology gets good enough so that it kind of hydraulically moves, and so the vehicle moves whilst you're steering and you've still got line of sight and stuff. I don't think it's really going to be as good as I would want it to be to invest that amount of money, but I certainly would like to give it a try. Mick Wood says, MS Flight Sim, you can now get boats, yeah, and helicopters. I actually did a very quick helicopter trip around New York City, which was pretty cool. Helicopters are bloody hard to control, mind. And very confused. They're very, very not what you expect them to be. All of the control surfaces are completely like bizarre. So it's like your feet are steering, not your hand, because your hand's doing like throttle and pitch, but steering is actually done with your feet, much like it is in a plane actually, I suppose, to some extent. But yeah, it's hard. Ranor Rashid says, hi Mike, only my CPU is working and the rest of the fans are just on but not spinning. What should I do? I would join our Discord and ask the question in there in one of the tech support rooms.
Mark Berry.
Mark Berry, question for Mike. Can you recommend any 1440p gaming monitors, 24, 25 inch? Not really, to be honest with you. It's always a difficult one. If you're going slightly larger, like 30 inch or something, then like the one I've got, the electric one, the electric brand actually aren't bad. When they've got some deals on, they're actually pretty competitive. At the moment, 1440p at 24, 25 inches, probably UK Hot Deals have had a few recently. There was a Dell one, which I think was pretty decent value. If not, it's going to be kind of the usual ones like AOC and stuff like that. I would suggest maybe head over to our Discord bargain section and we'll see if we can drag any out. I'm sure there has been. Rick H says, oh, I've seen the way Mike drives in Wreckfest. Be afraid, be very afraid. I do. When I'm driving in Wreckfest, I don't really have any care or inclination for other cars. And in fact, I see other vehicles as a way of getting around a bend faster by using them as a brake. So I slam into the side of a car and use deflection energy to come around the corner faster. And also at the same time, hopefully knocking out that opponent from being in the running. Aggressive, but it works. Lucky Man says, Curie QHD curved 27-inch monitor, fast VA. Yeah, that's probably worth a shout. The only thing is I find with those is the, because it's a VA panel, the colour accuracy isn't always going to be great, but if you don't really care too much about colour accuracy, then it'll be fine. I nearly bought one of those actually, just to review, because this monitor is getting a bit aged now, and really it should be chucked out. It has actually been in a skip, this monitor. We actually fished this monitor out of a skip, although I threw it in the skip. So.
And then climbed in to
And
get
then,
it out.
and then climbed in later and got it out. It's like, no, actually, I'm gonna resurrect that.
David Aiken's off.
Cheers, David. Piston Broke says, please stay away from sim racing, Mike Hooligan. Yeah, sim racing has got some very, very strict rules and regulations. So, like, no contact rules and all that kind of stuff. Because people take that stuff seriously. Like they would if it was like a real race. Just because it isn't on tarmac or asphalt or concrete or whatever, doesn't mean it isn't extremely serious. And people do take that stuff very, very seriously. Damo69 says, what would you recommend for a tasty chocolate treat if you only had £4.37 and your bus fare home was £1?
So that's £3.37.
So £3.37. I would probably go into a Sainsbury's store and get a Cadbury's mini eggs chocolate bar for about £1.60. Because there's enough sugar in that to keep you going and fill you up as well. I think that would be a pretty good decision.
But they were going, I don't think you can get them now because Easter's over.
Oh, true.
But they were going for 60p, weren't they?
They were. Sharek says the Lenovo, was that Q2 4G2? It's finally coming out of China. There you go. That might be worth a look. I might have a look myself, actually. Write that one down, Kath. Lenovo Q2.
Okay. Got it.
Q24 G2. That is, isn't that basically exactly the same model number as the AOC one? I'm sure there's that's a C24, I think. Nick Barnes has got a question there. So let's see what Nick's asking. Nick is asking, question, Mike, have you ever used a mini PC for home theatre use? Yeah. Yes, I have done. In various different format factors and for various different things. I've used them on TV sets to run monitors and projectors to constantly display images or rotating images for display purposes. I've also used them in the front room for watching YouTube and movies and stuff like that. Various different types. Again, the InWin B1 that we sold this week with the Ryzen 3 2200G, that was basically the home media center. We didn't use it a lot, but that was its intended purpose. So yes. Benny Hill, thanks for the spelling there. Benny Hill says, buy the cheapest booze and get a free meal later on. David Under says, Cadbury Old Gold, 70% cocoa, 200G block is my fave.
Don't have that here, do we?
No, Cadbury Old Gold, I don't think I've seen that ever.
It sounds like tobacco.
Well, because we'd have had Bourneville instead, wouldn't we? That was their version of it,
but they're
wasn't
not 70%, is it? Bourneville.
Bourneville's probably
30?
40, yeah, maybe something like that.
Quite low, isn't it?
Lucky Man says, chock log and eat the lot. Actually, I bet you've eaten those, haven't you?
Yeah, well,
You ate them all?
I thought you left them for me.
Bastard. There was a pack of...
I think they were fine, they were mine anyway, because you had your share.
Yeah, but they were a gift to me for mending her mending her car.
They weren't. They were those posters. And you had your half and gave me the other half.
I printed the posters.
I've never opened them up
we are
before.
arguing here. Pass it over, Kath. Let's show the viewers what I'm actually missing out on here.
There was only 5 in there.
There is my Ferrero collection, the Rochers, and Fatty Arbuckle over there has eaten them all.
There was 5 left. I've never opened those. They were like all plastic.
I was just getting salivated, ready to eat one of
Why
those.
did you leave them on my desk?
I shouldn't have left it on your desk. Fight.
Do you want a chewing gum instead?
No, I got a chewing gum.
I got some nugget.
There's no calories in the chewing gum.
Do you want nugget?
No. I do, but I don't.
It's from Greece.
David Under says, yeah, real dark chocolate. Yes, Bourneville is the same as our regular dark chocolate. Yeah.
Oh, I like Black Magic chocolates.
Des Ducker says, I don't know if you Heron Foods. Oh, if you have a Heron food store by you selling Cadbury mini egg chocolate bar for 79p. Got 12 bars yesterday.
We used to get 2 a night when they were down to 60.
I'll show you. Yeah, I think we've. I think there's still one left.
I think that's mine because you've eaten all
Piss
the
off.
others.
No.
You ate the.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Cadbury mini eggs. There's the thumbnail.
We only argue over chocolate.
That's the only thing we ever argue over is chocolate or food. 110 gram bar. That was reduced down from 165 to what, 62p was it?
I think it's 60.
Yeah, it might have been 60p because the scanned wrong.
But they were on the shelf as 125 still. So no one knew.
I'll pass that
They
back
must-
over to you.
I don't want an empty thing. I've got no room to put it.
That's what we're talking about. That is, Cadbury mini eggs are awesome. There's no other word for it. I think Cadbury's mini eggs. I was really lucky because when I was a youngster, my uncles all worked. Well, not all of them, but some of them worked at Cadbury's in Keynsham, which is now closed down, I think. But they used to have like a Cadbury shop on site for the staff. And they could go in and buy like broken bars, like crunchies, which are broken. You get like a bag and they just weigh it out, and it was ridiculously cheap. So when it came around to sort of Easter time, you'd always get the mini eggs. And mini eggs, you'd get a roll of mini eggs. I'm trying to think of something I've got here which can give you some idea of scale. But basically it was kind of like about that long in like a clear bag, wrapped. If you wrapped it round, rolled it, it'd be about that thick. So about that wide, round. So there's probably a good, I don't know, 200 mini eggs in there. And I think it costs like £2.50 or something. It's just insane value for money. Even back then in the like mid 80s. I think it might have been even £2. I'm not too sure. Anyway, so when my uncle used to come around with those, my mum would put an order in for what she wanted in that. So she'd have the crunchy bits broken up and I'd have the mini eggs or whatever. Fudge, broken fudge. Oh. I gotta start talking about chocolate. I'm getting really hungry. I'm gonna eat my own fingers. Dip them in cocoa and I'm gonna eat them. Anyway, that's what we want. James Brock says, hope you're all well, adding a like and making tacos for supper.
Yeah.
Good.
Tacos and kishes.
Tacos and kishes. Mark Berry says, I bet the man delivering the black magic has been cancelled now. I would imagine so. David says, don't have that mini egg bar here. Oh. Mini egg addict, yes, definitely. Benny Hill says, Ford shut down too, mate. Oh, Toblerone, yeah, I do like a Toblerone. Des Duckhurst has also got 8 cans of cider for £4. That's bloody good. Mark Berry says, didn't Cadbury's get taken over by Kraft Cheese? I got a feeling they might have done, yeah. I think the Kraft group did buy Cadbury. And now I think Cadbury's is made in... Is it like Norway or something? I don't know. It's made somewhere like very weird that you wouldn't expect Cadbury chocolates to come from. William Bodie says, Catchers, what happened to Mike's diet? Yeah, it went completely to pot. I'm not sure what happened.
And then he moans about his weight.
Something went wrong. No, seriously though, I used to eat a lot more junk than I do now, don't I?
I suppose, but you weren't sat down all day, were
No,
you?
that is my trouble. I'm sat down way too much, which is really bad for your health.
Mouth action.
Yeah.
Eating my chocolate as well as your own. Who ate all the ice cream, babe?
Yeah. Last man standing UK. I grew up in the 70s, would go back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most people of a certain age, if you're
Do you remember marathons, he asked?
if you're in your 40s or 50s or possibly more, that is why I think a lot of us hark back to our youth and it being better, because it was such a, well, there was still crap going on in the world, and there was still like inflation and strikes, and basically actually 2020 onwards has effectively been the 1970s all over again. It's just like they've just churned it up, 50-year cycle, and here we are again. It's basically exactly what the 70s were like, but I think the 70s were probably better in some respects, but worse in others. But certainly simpler times.
Flowers.
Yeah.
I love flowers.
So yeah, I think given the choice to go back to the 80s or 90s now, knowing what I know and having to relive them, I think I probably still would. If I didn't have any recollection, I could just go like that and get back into my kind of teenage body in that era, and not knowing anything about the future, but just living that era again. I think I would find that preferable to what we're going through now.
Guess what Mike's been watching this week?
What have I been watching?
Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, I have watched Back to the Future this week, yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
And your little gilet.
My gilet. Mondelez is the new name for craft stroke Toblerone. Correct, yeah. Mondelez do bloody everything. Well, Bill, thinking of getting back into Flight Sim. Played for years on different versions, right up to FSX, then stopped. Is the Thrustmaster T Flight Stick X joystick for PC? I don't totally understand that question. Sorry. Is the Thrustmaster T Flight Stick X joystick for PC? I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah, I don't know on that one, sorry.
Wraith up bit.
There is actually very good support on Microsoft Flight for lots of control surfaces. What name, sorry?
Wraith.
Wraith 666. I was going to come by your little InWin the other day. I've not got around to it yet. Oh, sorry to hear that. It is actually gone now, Wraith. My apologies. It went this week. That was a cool little PC. Well, it wasn't, because it was a glass top on it, and it got a bit hot sometimes. But
it did look cool. I loved
it. It is a great little PC. I didn't really want to get rid of it, but I don't use it. Like I said earlier, it's basically in the front room, underneath the TV, as a media center, which we use that room maybe once, maybe twice a year, Christmas predominantly, and literally I'll just turn it on, watch some YouTube stuff to annoy Kath's mum, and that was about it. And kind of every now and then go in there and just turn it on, do some Windows
and every
updates.
time you wanted to use it, because we haven't used it for so long, it need updating,
Yeah.
which should take hours.
Almost straight away it's like, oh, yes, of course, there's a Windows update, because I haven't turned it on for months. Benny Hill says, yep, the 70s were great. I kind of, yeah, I didn't really know, the 70s are as much of a blur to me because I was very young. The 80s, to the tail end of the 80s is more kind of my kind of school years. And yeah, that is kind of, I think most of it is just the naivety of when you're young. You don't understand the world, but yet you think you do. I think that is what I miss. It's kind of that whole blue pill, red pill thing. And I think the blissful ignorance of being that young and naive is probably why it seems so good. I think if we probably were older and wiser back then, it would probably be the same shit as now. But you have the innocence of youth. And also you're probably more focused on other things, such as your BMX, your girlfriend, or your mountain bike, that sort of stuff, rather than politics and how much PC parts cost. Colin Hilton says 40s, 50s and 60s were the best times. Yeah, because you're late 70s, so you would have been, how old would you have been in the 40s? 20.
Look at Mike's head. Here are the cogs.
Yeah, 20.
Sorry.
So yeah, you'd have been in your teens in the 40s and 50s.
You should apologise for your headphone users where those cogs were in.
Yeah. My EXE has expired. Freedom House says nostalgia works that way when you're younger. You don't pay attention to those problems, so it seems like you don't. Oh, yeah, basically what I just said. Last Man Standing says I used to go out in the summer holidays all day on my own with my mates. Mum and Dad, no idea where I was and not really worried about it. Yeah, I think that was part of it. There was that kind of, in general, there was a lot. Well, there was communities for a start. So
our road is very nice, and our daughter, even at 6, she'd go off, but she did have a phone, so we could always tell her it's time to come home, or where was she, just go and get her.
There were bad people in the 70s and 80s, but it was arguably less so, because I think back then, because the rule of law was a little bit stiffer then, and there was less kind of human rights and stuff. So if you got caught doing bad stuff, you would get the living crap beat out of you before you even got to the prison. So there was always that deterrent of like, if you do something bad, people will F you up, like properly F you up. None of this kind of slaps and stuff. They will properly go to town on you. So there was always that thing of when in this, well, I guess from the 20s through to probably the 70s, there was always that fear of, if you did get caught, you knew you were going to get messed up. So that meant that the only people that really pushed the boundaries of crime were the proper criminally insane, because they just did not care. Whereas the opportunists back then were more kind of wary. If they got caught trying to steal someone's car, for instance, or broke into their house, they knew that realistically if they got caught in the wrong house, they probably wouldn't make it back out.
Like Dutch John says.
Whereas now, if someone breaks into your house, you've basically got to escort them around and give them a cup of tea before you call the police.
Dutch John says also in those days we had the advantage of our pranks, no Facebook.
Yeah, that's true. Stephen Simmons with us. Hey, Mike and Kath. How you doing, Steve? Mike, saw your video on the under £400 build. Got some inspiration and switched out the 5600G for the 4600G and slightly different motherboard and PSU for 290. Perfect starter PC for my little lad's birthday. Oh, awesome. I'm glad it was useful. James Brock, volume seem low to anyone else?
Everyone else says the sound's okay.
Okay. No, don't know why. I did go a little bit quiet. It might be because I'm sat on an angle and my lav mic's a bit. Is that any better? Maybe. Benny Hill says 53 here and lovely to be here. Awesome. Life begins at 50.
Okay.
Colin Hilton says I was 21 in 1964. Awesome. Ian Hornsey says the best rock bands came out in the 70s, but sadly most have gone to the great gig in the sky. Sadly, yes, I think it's the 70s and 80s were a time of quite a lot of excess for a lot of people, bands especially, because you come out of the 60s, the kind of the sort of hippie movement and obviously Vietnam, etc. A lot of things happened then. And the whole kind of drug scene in the 70s and especially the 80s got really kind of it was a big yeah, well, the 80s, I don't know, I suppose you had like acid house in the late 80s, which was kind of like almost like a reinvention of that. Yeah, but yeah, there was a lot of drugs around and a lot of cheap alcohol, cheap flights and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like, yeah, everyone just got a bit partied out in the 80s, and we lost a lot of 70s band members not long after. Dutch Jan says 50 is the new 20. For me, 50 is going to be the new 20 stone, I reckon. The way things are going. Nick Barnes says, damn sight more respect back in the 70s and 80s for sure. Yeah, I think it was just a different time, different expectations, and you still had... I think a lot of it stopped in schools, because schools are where kids grow up, and they're taught kind of early doors what is right and what is wrong. And I think in the late 80s, early into the 90s, and definitely in the 2000s, it was very much the kind of... It was always drummed into you that you can be whatever you want to be. There's nothing that can hold you back, and you have freedom to express yourself however you want to express yourself, which was a totally different mentality in the 70s and 80s. Because in the 70s and 80s in schools, you're basically, shut up, do as you're told, do this, or you're going to get a cane. So you were kind of, there was a threat of physical violence if you didn't do your work. And you knew that there was a kind of a line that if you mess around, it's going to hurt, or you're going to have some kind of consequence. Whereas they removed that, and in the 90s, it was kind of a lot freer. In the 2000s, then it was kind of like, well, yeah, Johnny doesn't want to do this lesson because X, Y, Z. Oh, that's okay, no problem. Just, yeah, we'll do something else. And it got to the point where rather than teachers saying, right, this is what you have to learn, it become a case of, right, this is what we want kids to know, rather than to learn and things. So like you'd learn a trade at school, maybe you'd learn bricklaying or plumbing or electronics, you'd learn a science. Whereas now that's all kind of, you can learn media studies or things like that. It's a very different education system. I personally don't know if it's for the best or for the worst. I think they try to adapt to a changing social outlook. Maybe they've made a few mistakes along the way. Maybe they haven't. I don't know. It's not really my call to say one way or the other. I just think that there was a lot more respect 70s, 80s, 90s, and it's gradually, as teaching environments become more lenient and more open and relaxed, the children have also been more relaxed, almost to the point of, I wouldn't say laziness, because they're still working, but they don't realise how hard it could have been. But then on the flip side, there's a lot more pressure at school nowadays for kids with social media, online stuff, all those pressures, loads of examinations, loads of targets to meet, because schools have to meet targets, otherwise Ofsted comes around and beats their ass. So they're under this kind of weird pressure to perform well, even if they can't. So if basically the schools concentrate on the people that are going to raise their numbers rather than the ones that aren't. So yeah, it's a very different teaching environment. Mark Berry says, our teachers would be in jail now for things they used to do to us kids back in the day. Yeah. I've had a chalkboard eraser thrown at my head. I've been hit around the head with like big chunky rings. I had a javelin thrown at me.
Who was that the rings on?
Mrs. Shinner.
Who?
Mrs. Shinner. This is in like junior school. Big chunky old big ass rings and bang around the back of it. You know. And even then it's like the 70s and 80s. It was the 80s and I had like proper big bouffant hair, and even that could not protect me from the pain of the golden wedding rings and stuff. Shit, they hurt.
How many times was she married?
I don't think she was married that often. She just liked jewellery and had like engagement ring, eternity ring, wedding ring, and they're all like, basically it's like a knuckle duster. Get and do your sums. Wow.
Oh, that's so tight.
And at the same school, this is Downing County Junior School, which is now Stanbridge School, I think. There was a Mr. Barry, who was the headmaster, and he was a proper old school headmaster. So he was probably in his 50s, maybe late 40s, 50s, in the early 80s. So he'd come from a very strict teaching regime. and he always had a big old chunky ass leather belt in his room, literally hung up. He had his coat stand, his hat on the top, his Mac, and then there's always this big fat belt. And everyone who got sent to the headmaster's room, you'd go in there, you'd kind of open the door, the smoke from his cigars and cigarettes would clear, and you just peer through, and he'd just appear through this cloud of smoke.
Like,
and he'd be like,
tonight, Matthew,
tonight, Matthew, you're going to get your ass spanked. I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to. He had a shoe, so if you weren't that bad, you'd get the shoe.
Did you actually get hit with things?
Yeah.
Because I'm older than you, and I didn't ever get hit.
I was lucky. I think my year was about the age where they started to phase it out. So the guys in the years above us got even worse. But yeah, if you weren't too bad, you got the dap or the slipper. If you were really bad, you like smashed a window or something, then you definitely get the belt. Or the cane. You had a cane in there as well. The cane wasn't a cane. It was basically a walking stick, and that was hung on that damn thing as well. Never forget, because he always had a window. You open the door. There's this window behind him, very dark place, but this window shine through, and all you see is like the silhouette of this bloke in a suit,
with the smoke.
And you'd see the silhouette of the coat stand on the side with the belt and the bloody cane and all that, and you're like, oh, fucking hell, it's gonna hurt. And he used to do the knuckles as well, so he'd like whoosh across the, you bastard. Oh, I'm back there. I'm honestly reliving it. I'm gonna need psychiatric help. But this is in a junior school, so this would have been under 11.
Our school wasn't
I
like
think.
that.
Yeah, under 11 that would have been.
No wonder you didn't want to go.
Yeah. Board eraser launched across the class with extreme precision by math teacher. He was an ex-military and Irish. That's basically what I had, yeah. It was, I'm trying to think it was who threw the eraser. Can't remember. But yeah. There was always that thing. There was always the threat of violence. So if you didn't do your sums, or you misbehaved, or God forbid you just back chatted a teacher, then yeah, you knew that was like you shouldn't do it. Benny Hill says, yep, under 11s, mate. They ruled by fear. They did, definitely. Mark Barry says, corporal punishment must have been stopped in the mid-80s after I left school. Yeah, I'm trying to think. If I... 80... Must have been 84. 84, 85 that they phased it out completely, I think. But they were beginning to in the early 80s, 81, 82. I'm sure corporal punishment in schools was abolished in 84, 85. One of those. Last Man Standing says it was 85 here in Scotland. Yeah, I think it was about it. Mark says, and now look at where we are as a society. Yeah. This thing is, like I said earlier with everything, there's always those that are going to take things to extremes. So, corporal punishment as a deterrent actually does work. But it's when people take advantage of it and give you the beating that you don't deserve. Like, for kids, like if a kid goes to touch a hot fire or something, you give it a smack. Like, keep away. I think that is a justifiable act. But yeah, for the person who then would like beat the kid round the head until they cry or bruise or whatever,
Or take
clearly that's not the right way to parent. But sometimes a little short, sharp shop, which I can't say, is actually a pretty good thing. And I still to this day, if I quite often, if I see someone older than me, I will refer to them as sir or mister if I know their surname, and I'll be polite and be respectful of elders. I think that's probably what was beaten into me as a young kid, that is the thing, you be respectful to your elders. Even if you don't particularly like them or respect them, you do it because it's the thing to do. Like when you were younger, if you were playing football outside someone's house and an older person come out and told you to piss off or whatever, or don't play ball round here, you grab your ball and you'd run off and you'd be like, find somewhere else to play. Whereas now, if you say it to kids, they're more likely to shove things through your window. So, yeah, society is a different place. Not saying that didn't happen years ago, people probably would have done, but these days, kids are kind of allowed to do pretty much what they want. Which is, I don't see it, well, it can be a bad thing if it's not kept in check, which often it isn't. Dutch Jan says, who among us has been made worse by a kick in the ass? Yeah, that is the thing.
The cat had kittens.
Yeah, cats do it.
Them,
You ever watch a cat that's had kittens? If one of the kittens is misbehaving or is in danger, they'll give it a whack with their paw. They don't hate or dislike their kids or their children or their offspring. It's just the way things are. It's a natural reaction to some extent.
But it's not like a painful claws out scratch or whack or anything, is it? It's just a stop it.
Gran Torino. Yeah, that was a pretty good movie. Right, okay, I think I've probably exhausted all of my childhood things that went wrong and turned me into the person I have. I think I've done all right. Not too bad. Could be worse. I still have mental issues. Anyway. I'm not reading that letter. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Hopefully you've enjoyed this Saturday night's entertainment, and we'll try and look on the brighter side of PC pricing. Hopefully, with the summer and spring breaks, etc. coming on, then hopefully manufacturers will be forced and retailers will be forced to drop prices a little bit to give us a little bit of wiggle room on these budget things. Also as well, genuinely, if you know of any decent motherboards that are cheap, do let me know, either email or in the Discord or whatever. However you choose to contact us, you're more than welcome to do so. Just let us know. Be interested to see. And if it's a deal which is available from a retail place and you think it's a particularly good one, again, post it in the Discord and the Bargains No Chat, and I'm sure it's going to help out a lot of other people, because it seems that we're all in the same boat, which is, yeah, not very good at the moment. Anyway, thank you all so much for the super chats. Thank you all for your contributions, donations, etc., and your comical things in chat. Very enjoyable. Hopefully you all in the UK have a fantastic bank holiday Monday. There will be videos out, so don't worry, I'm not going to leave you in the lurch. There'll still be a video out on Monday. Next week again, another bank holiday on Monday. There will still be a video then. It's already been done, planned, etc. So yeah, I think that's going to wrap things up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching. And now I have to find the button again. I've got to find a way around this. Anyway, yes, good night all. Sleep well, and please